It was Babe Ruth who many years ago said, "You can't beat the person who never gives up." And that really tells the story of the Brockton Rox this season. 2-1 pitch from Brooks is popped up. Middle of the infield. Torres calling for it. Bustos calling for it. It is Torres making the catch, and the Brockton Rox have won the Northeast League Championship.
With the sounds of the 2003 League Championship victory celebration fading, the Brockton Rox quickly turned their attention to defending their title in 2004. One huge move would be finding a new pitching coach to replace John Duffy. Hello again. It's been a while. The Rox pitching staff had really thrived under John Duffy. The team earned run average had improved from 4.77 in 2002 all the way down to 4.12 in the championship 2003 season, and the number of walks allowed decreased dramatically. Pitchers Scott Martin and Tony Stutz were two of the guys who responded especially well to Duffy's coaching and had breakthrough seasons. Now, John left the Rox and went to the Florida Marlins organization, spent more than 10 years with them, worked his way all the way up through their minor leagues. Really good coach. So the Rox' new coach would have some really big shoes to fill, and ownership turned to 12-year Major League veteran pitcher Steve Trout, son of another big league pitcher, Paul "Dizzy" Trout. And the Trout family had long-standing connections to the Vecht family, Bill and his son, Mike, who was now a front office consultant for the Rox, so it was a natural fit. Early in the season, I sat down with Steve and recorded a long interview, one we call in the broadcasting business an evergreen, one that's not dated and could be used at any time, especially during those long rain delays that we had one or two of in Brockton. You begin to run out of things to say. You simply say, now let's go to an interview I did with so-and-so. Well, this one ran for about 30 minutes, which might be a little long for today's audiences, so I've trimmed it down considerably. But Trout is an interesting and amusing guy with some fascinating stories. With the nickname Rainbow, yeah, Steve was always considered a free spirit. Hope you enjoy.
Some people may be aware that you are the son of a big league ball player by the name of Paul "Dizzy" Trout. Growing up, was that something that affected you in a positive, negative way as far as your baseball career was concerned, being the son of a major league ball player?
It was bigger than life. I mean, he was an amazing man, kind of a renaissance man in many ways. But the house is always filled with a lot of laughter and people. A lot of them ball players. But Dad would show up sometimes with the grounds crew of the White Sox. So there'd be 9 guys coming over, all from the south side of Chicago, and he'd start with barbecue. And one time Dad pulled up with a cement truck and a gravel truck and said, we're going to replace the driveway, without telling us. He was just that type of person. Maybe one day Ted Williams would stop over, or one day White Sox players would stop over, Billy Pierce or Lou Boudreau. Our Dad would want to host some friends down at the pool table and put on a show of his incredible billiard skills and trick shots. He just really enjoyed the outdoors, and with Dad, there's always that sense of things being alive and fun, and he was very gregarious, and he was a lot of fun. But he died when I was 14 years old, and so there were times that I sure wish I would have gotten to have him be part of my baseball career, because that part of my career was lost, and that's probably when I needed the most guidance, because he would have certainly made sure I hung around the right people, or gave me that kick in the rear end when I needed it, when maybe no one else could do that. So I missed that, but boy, when he was around, it was a lot of fun. I would like to have had his guidance again, but when he was working with me on some baseball tips, he kind of knew that I was going to be the player out of 7 boys that he had. That we have 7. I have 6 brothers and 3 sisters, and he knew because there was a picnic that we had at the Campbell residence, and I started throwing the ball, and I was 12. I remember the ball was popping the glove pretty good. And Dad was standing with Dr. Gennady, and I heard him yell out, "Somebody go get Pearl. This is the little SOB who can pitch. And tell her we can stop having kids, too, because this is the one." So he kind of knew, but it was a gift.
I think all youngsters who play baseball dream of being drafted. Tell me about the day that you learned that you were drafted by the Chicago White Sox.
Actually, yeah, I didn't really know until I came down from the mountaintop.
Really?
I was literally in Bozeman, Montana, climbing the Spanish Peaks, and I came down a day later, and there was a little note on the door that said, "Call home, you've been drafted #1 by the White Sox." So I don't know if this is true, but I kind of think I might have been one of the few #1 draft choices that was not sitting by a phone, or his agent, waiting to sign for the big bucks, although back then it wasn't very big bucks, 25 years ago or so. But I really, I called immediately, and they told me that they've been trying to reach me, and they want to interview me, and they'd like to get me home to sign the contract. And so a few days later I left Montana, but I was literally 10,000 feet, and some people say I never came down.
That's good.
Well, it really never hurts. But so we didn't really have too much of a negotiation. We pretty much signed the contract and got on with it. Because the White Sox, Bill Veeck and Roland Heeman, they were all part of that, and we were just eager to kind of get it going.
What experiences during your minor league career, which wasn't very long before you went to the big leagues, what experiences, both positive and negative, did you pick up that you are now passing along as a coach in baseball?
Well, that as much on the field is what you do off the field. And I learned from my own mistakes and my own experiences on how that affects your quality of player, your training, or your work ethic, or your ability to even get along with the coaches and the managers. That's a very important part of this game.
Your first organization was the Chicago White Sox. You and I chatted a while back about this, that you were part of an all left-handed rotation for a while there.
Yeah, we wouldn't allow any righties in there because they just would mess it up. But we left spring training, and when we left, we took a picture. It said, "No right-hand turns," a little construction sign that we put in front of us. And Baseball Digest did an article on us, and we were all standing there. I saw that article later in Rain Man when they showed a shot in Dustin Hoffman's room, and that picture's up on his wall. He was a sports collector, and I think you might remember that movie a little bit. But we had that was a young staff, and then of course later came Dodson and Hoyt, and some pretty good arms and interesting personalities, as you know.
You were dealt from the Chicago White Sox to the Chicago Cubs. What was the difference in playing on one side of Chicago as opposed to the other?
Well, really the biggest difference were the kind of fans. Daytime baseball is so much different than nighttime baseball. The fans in '83, my first year with the Cubs, they were a little more docile in the sense, because the South Side, they were rowdy, and they sure did get their money's worth. And we had, of course, Mike Veeck with the promotions, and his father Bill. Just a real festive time on the South Side. The North Side, they were a little more subdued. They were good fans. They weren't rowdy fans, and I thought that was the biggest difference. And I preferred a little bit more the North Side kind of feeling. But then in '84 is when it all changed.
'84 was so close for the Chicago Cubs. You were a big part of that. I guess on the one hand, it was extremely exciting, but it must have been a huge disappointment to come that close to the World Series.
Yes, yeah, it was what the great writer Dickens said. It was the best of times and the worst of times, all within a matter of, well, that year was a roller coaster. In that last 2 weeks of the playoffs, how things had changed, winning 2-0 and having to win one more game and losing 3 in a row. It was really a bad time in that regard, even though you wanted to stay positive about the good season in the 96 wins, I believe it was.
You mentioned the atmosphere surrounding the Cubs. I guess a big part of that has to be Harry Carey, who was so closely associated with the Cubs during that time period. What are your thoughts on Harry as a broadcaster and dealing with him?
Well, Harry was box office, and he knew it, and he knew how to play it, and he really did almost become bigger than the team. And he was an entertaining guy. He really did become the mayor of Rush Street, and people in Chicago really identify with somebody who is a little louder than he should be, a little more opinionated than he should be. Instead of seeing the game and calling the game, he brought in a lot of different things. He would pronounce names backwards. He'd make sure he gave all his friends good plugs, but he was often wrong about the game. He was often wrong about the game, and often I thought he was a little bit too hard on our own team and easier on the other team. Though his work was brilliant, and the fact that he did entertain the crowd. Not easy as an announcer. That's not easy to do. He was a fans announcer who did a tremendous job, and as a organization, you'd love to have a guy like Carey because fans loved him.
You had a great run with the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Cubs. Then being dealt away from the Cubs, your career kind of ended rather abruptly. You left the game for a while, from what I understand. You became an agent for a while. Did you miss baseball? Because I know you tried a comeback a few years after you had retired.
Well, what really upset me was the way my career ended. For me personally, New York and Seattle, I was pretty much done with the game. It was done with me. I don't know how that was at that time. I wasn't pitching good. I just knew that I wasn't going to help any ball club out. I didn't want to be a AAA journeyman at that point in time. However, when I left, I got into the agent business and felt that there was a need for that because I saw so much misrepresentation being done to players. Years in '96, I was still representing players, and I decided after my mom passed away that there was this need to get back and try it out again. And it actually was a brilliant, wonderful experience because I went back to the game. I fought my way back into it. I asked people if they'd give me a chance. I changed a lot of things in my life, and just all of a sudden, I got on the mound. I felt like this was my decision to come out back and do it. And I got finally good closure on it. I was pitching a AAA ball game for the Pirates in '96. I was 40, and I was throwing 92 with an 86 slider. And one of my clients was actually going to bat. He was on deck because I was still representing players, although the Players Association sent me a letter saying, this is not right, you cannot do this. And other agents were at that point in time really upset that here I am representing players, and now I'm actually a player, so you cannot participate as an agent and as a player at the same time. But it was a great experience. I really believe, when I pitched, I cut corners sometimes, or I didn't do all the things I would like to have done. But when I came back, even though it was a short-lived comeback, I'd like to have had that sort of focus when I was playing. And I think that's what I was able to really take, and now, again, sort of then full circle, apply it to now being a coach. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's the teaching part, it's the mentoring part, it's the helping part that I enjoy the most. When you have a good group of guys like we have here with this ball club, and a good manager, of course, and a ball club like this team, how they play for Ed and Chris, the hitting coach, that there's going to be more upside and good times and bad times. And I told the players, I said, we don't get the time back that we lost, so let's try to make the best of the time that we have now.
That's the truth. Steve Trout, thank you so much for taking the time, and I know the listeners appreciate you sharing that insight into your life.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate it, and it's nice of you to do it. It's It's a great time being here in Brockton. They love their baseball, that's for sure.